And just so I don't get lost, today is the 16th, right? And I'll try to upload this thing eventually. So we'll see how this works and how this uploads. And I hate Google now because they're gonna kill the Hangouts thingy that was actually useful. The technology that I have tried to use, they're replacing it with one that's possibly better but harder to use. So,
what was it called? Google
Hangouts. This is Hangouts on Air.
Okay.
As opposed to, but they're killing it and they're gonna call it something else. YouTube broadcast or something like that, but you need to download that encoder. There is no, it's now not provided by Google, so you need to go get it from somewhere else and stuff like that. I hate them. Nah, it just sort of kind of worked this way. I would just not even think about it, just connect, and then it's automatically on YouTube without me having to do stuff. Let me talk a little bit about functions and then kind of try to do assignment 0. Let me mention one thing just in case. And I've been sending you guys email. Actually, one important thing. If you have not received at least one email from me this morning, come talk to me after class, because that probably means that you're not on my spam list. I got it at some point in time from D2L, but you may have joined after. And actually somebody had asked, if you can, please email me through the regular email rather than through D2L. Because D2L is a good system, but their email is a piece of manure. And what it really drives me nuts is that it lies to me. It forwards the email to my regular SPSU email with an address, but it mangles your email address. It tries to send it to website D2L or something like that. And so I replied to that email, and it bounces. It's like, now I need to go log into WebCT or figure out who they are, as opposed to just click reply. And so, if you can do that, and you should have received at least one email. You guys read that stuff, or shall I make it bigger and risk not putting everything in there? How about this? Close enough? Okay. We talked a little bit last class about this. If we close the door, maybe we get less noise. Does this work? And it doesn't work. Oh well, we'll figure it out. Functions allow us to define a rule for how to calculate something, right? The really cool thing, they're actually fairly close to the concept of a mathematical function. What's a mathematical function? You remember your algebra, your middle school, right?
For every input, there's an output.
Yeah, right? You put something in, something comes out, and you don't care what it is, right? This is what we're trying to define, right? Functions allow us to kind of switch hats from when I'm calling a function, right? I don't care how it's implemented. I just pass it stuff and I get stuff out. How it's implemented? I don't care. I don't know. When I am designing a function, it is the other way around, right? If I'm designing a function, then my job when I'm implementing a function is to calculate how to produce the output that we need given the desired input. I don't care who's going to call me. I don't give a hoot. Anybody could call me with whichever input they want. I just need to figure out the rule to produce the right output given the inputs, and that's it. Does that idea make sense? In programming, that is what we do all day, every day. Figure out levels of abstraction and kind of build stuff so that hopefully, in the end, your main program is incredibly simple. You just call two functions and it does everything. It doesn't always work that way, but that's the idea. And so imagine that we need to create a function for calculate whether a number is even. How do we define functions, right? First, we put the return value, what kinds of things, right? The type of things we are going to return. In this case, it's a Boolean. We have talked about Booleans, right? Not yet. I need to go back and uncheat. We did talk about integers, right?
Yes.
Cool. Okay. Now let's talk about Booleans first. Booleans are kind of the most important weird type in programming, right? In elementary school, you learn to deal with integers, right? Eventually, you learn to deal with floating point and fractions and things like that, right? So all those things are, you deal with them all the time. You think of them as things that you apply operations to, right? You apply the plus operator to 3m2 and you get 5, right? Booleans, we deal with them all the time, but we almost never make them explicit in normal life. As a programmer, you do all the time, right? So that's going to be one of the things that you need to train your brain. A Boolean is something that just returns true or false. Its only two possible values are true or false. That's it. You cannot put anything else. You don't have two, you don't have three. It's either true or false. That's it. Does that make sense? When do we use Booleans in English? What do Booleans correspond to in English? Yes, no, right? Every assertion, right? Half the assertions we do, or the questions we do, are yes, no. Do we have a class today? That's a Boolean. True or false? We do. Today, we didn't give, right? Is it raining? Yes or no, right? And most of the times when you do assertions, I live in Georgia or something like that, right? Those tend to correspond to true or false. Yes. No. Does that idea make sense? The thing that's going to be weird is that we're making them explicit. We're actually storing them in variables, and we're going to use operators for them. Just like you add two numbers, you can do things to two Booleans. What kinds of things do we do to Booleans? When you talk in English, what do you do with things that have yes or no answers? Sorry? You ask a question. How do you ask, when you ask two questions, right? There will be two Booleans. What do you do to them many times? Sorry? Operate, but what operators? What are the names of those operators? What do you say? How can you combine, right? Something that's going to give you a different Boolean from two Booleans.
Conditional operators?
Yeah.
Or you mean like a conjunction?
Yes, conjunction. And what's the other guy? Conjunction, disjunction, negation, right? Those are the fancy Latin names for that. What are they in English? And, or, and not. Right? Does that make sense? So we can declare variables of type Boolean, right? B1, and the constants, rather than being 1 or 2 or 25, are just true or false. And the operators that we have are bang. What do you call that character? Exclamation point. Bang. Now, I don't know. Bang is the shortest one that I know for it, right? Probably varies depending on part of the English world that you come from. An exclamation point, it means not, right? So when you say, rather than saying it is raining, you say it is not raining. Now, in order to make things easier in math, in grammar, English grammar would put the not in the middle of the predicate, right? A predicate is just another name for Boolean. A predicate is something that evaluates true or false. Today's framing is a predicate, right? An assertion. People waiting?
Yeah.
No, no problem. Let me actually. Maybe. In programming, you say not and then the Boolean, or the Boolean expression, right? We have and, which is conjunction. Are you guys, some of you are taking discrete math?
Yeah.
You talk about that stuff, right? Conjunction is and, right? And it is 2 ampersands. And we also have or, which is 2 bars. And that is a really weird character that is the vertical bar character. It's usually it's the shift and the backslash, right, on your keyboard. Pipe. Yes. If you do Unix, yes, it's the pipe operator. It's 2 pipes. If we go with our idea of using descriptive variable names, right? We would have variables like that. So we would call our Boolean variable earth is round. And we're using camel case, right? That one would be true, right? If we wanted to say earth is not round, we would say not earth is round, right? Bang, earth is round. Does that make sense? Earth is square, we get false, right? And we can combine those things. So earth is round or square, right, in English is equivalent to, is equal, so we are assigning, we are sticking a variable, a value in a variable, right, to earth is round or, and that's the programming or, earth is square. And the same if we wanted to say earth is round and earth is square, right? So what would be the value assigned to this variable, earth is round or square?
True.
True, right? We get or, true or false, and we get true. And what's the value for earth is round and square? False, right? The or in programming is slightly different than in English, because in English we are not precise. In programming, we want to be very precise, so we have to agree on one. What does or mean in English?
Inclusive or.
Either or.
Is it either or could you have both?
Yeah.
Yes.
In English, it's like, right? We kind of, by pragmatic, we kind of include that you cannot have both, right? On the other hand, it is actually allowed, right? If you ever ask a kid, what do you want, cake or ice cream?
Yes.
Yes, right? Yes. Both, right? I mean, so, in many other times, right, you have kind of an exclusive or. You can only have one of those. But in other cases, it's both. In English, it's not quite clear, right? And some people can make jokes about that stuff. In programming, it's always inclusive or. How can you make an exclusive or in programming?
Two-end statements.
Yeah, just keep combining that stuff, right? This or this, and not both of them, right? Or something like that, right? Does that idea make sense? This will probably change your brain. In fact, for assignment 1, you're not supposed to use an if statement. In fact, if you have never seen programming, as some of you, you should never know what an if statement is, right? You can do it just with this. You should just be returning and combining those things, right? if you know if statements, you can do it. I'm not going to kill you, but I'll probably point it out. It is not terribly important right now, but you should know that Java does what is called short-circuiting, right? When it knows the answer, it doesn't keep going. So in here, right, when it tries to evaluate this expression, right, it says, oh, Earth is round is true. So I know that the answer to the OR is true. I don't even look at what's on the other side.
Does that mean like if you had Earth square plus plus, that it would not evaluate?
It would not evaluate the plus plus. Yes. You'd still get fired for putting plus plus in a place where it shouldn't go.
Yes.
But it's sometimes useful because the stuff on both sides could be really complicated, and so you may be checking on one side conditions so that the other stuff doesn't blow up. And things like that, right? For this class, we'll probably never use it, but it's a good idea to know, right? And the same way in here, well, actually, in this case, it wouldn't work, right? Wouldn't do short-circuiting, because we get Earth is round. Yes. Do we know the answer to the AND? No, we need to check that the other one, so we need to evaluate both. Does that idea make sense? Cool. So you know about short-circuiting. Woohoo! Since we are going to deal with Booleans, we have seen the operators that we have to combine Booleans. Now, which other operators we have that produce Booleans? Right? What kinds of things can we do? These are the relational or comparison operators. We have equal equal, checks whether those two things are equal. Why did it use two equal signs there?
Because one is an assignment.
Yeah, one equal is an assignment, right? So you have to do something different. And actually, at the time C came out, the guys who made it said, oh, you know what? Actually, we use assignment a lot more than comparison. So let's use the shorter one for assignment. I don't know whether that's true or not nowadays, but that's what they decided. It is fairly common, that's a fairly common typo, and you have to start slapping your hands when they type the wrong one. Usually, the good thing is that typing will usually prevent us from typing the wrong one. The types in Java will prevent us, will catch it when we do the wrong one. Does that make sense? So we have two variables, two integer variables, a and b. A equal b would produce a result of what type? Boolean, right? It's either true or false, you're either equal or not. Whereas a equals b would produce a result of what type? Int, and you shouldn't use it. But actually in Java maybe it's void. Maybe it doesn't actually produce a result, but you shouldn't be using that result. But the compiler will catch it, but it's still fairly common too. We have not equal, which is bang equal, is the same not. You could write it not a equals b, or just a not equals b. Does that make sense? We have less than and greater than, same as math. We have greater than or equal and less than or equal, which are close to math. Right? What do you do in math? You have an extra line because you can do that. Right? In computers you can't, so you write both characters. Does that make sense? So, let's go look at this example. Maybe we'll come up with more. Int a equals 9, Boolean is a10 equals a equals 10. So what's the value of this? False, right? And there do you see the difference between equal and equal equal? Is a greater than or equal to 10? It's going to be equal to a greater than or equal to 10. And what's that going to be? False again, because a is 9, right? Is a between 10 and 20? Oh, sorry, it's less than or equal to 20. Sorry. It's gonna do false, right? Oh, sorry. I'm an idiot. I went ahead to myself. Sorry. This one is gonna be true, right? If a less than or equal to 20, that's gonna be true, right? Is a between 10 and 20, so we're gonna do this and that. What's gonna happen? This is false, and this is, who the hell cares? We know that it's false, so the and is false. We short circuit and don't even look at the other side. Does that make sense? We can also write it like this: a greater than or equal to 10 and a less than or equal to 20, right? You should start getting used to doing this kind of stuff, right? We don't usually in English symbolically write and combine Booleans with operators. We do it all the time. It's just we don't tend to think of them as almost like numbers, right? And so go practice. Java REPL is amazing. I think I need to do www. Right, so we can do stuff like Boolean. Yeah. What would this evaluate to?
So then that would be saying, because sorry, Smitzel, thinking out loud, see if that helps. We're saying that we define B1 as meaning true. So that statement, we're saying that B1 is both true and false, or it's true. Is that right?
Not that B1 is true and false.
Okay.
That B1 and false,
Okay,
the result of those two things.
Okay.
Right? B1 doesn't need to be false.
Okay.
We only mentioned B1 once, but yeah, it's. And just to prime your brain, we don't define B1 to be true. We almost do. What's the difference between defining B1 to be true and what we did? What's the difference between, did we define B1 to be true? B1 is a variable, so it's temporarily true. It may be false, right? In the middle of the thing, we can change it, just to confuse you.
Yes.
Yeah. Which, yes, it is okay in English, but
the way I use it to see an expression is everything that's inside the parentheses is one expression. So why you do not need to have the B1 on the right side of the pie?
Here? You mean?
Yeah, you have B1 on the left side inside the parentheses.
It's B1, it's not B1, it's B1 and false. That's one expression. This whole thing is one expression.
Yeah, that's one expression.
Yes.
On the other side of the pie, you have just true.
Yes.
So,
which is another expression.
how does it relate to B1? How does it, I mean,
It doesn't relate to B1. It's just you're just computing stuff, just like you do 3 plus 4 or 3 plus 1 times 2. What's the answer to this? What does this evaluate to? 8, right? You're doing the same thing. You're just combining values and getting other stuff out. Booleans are just as operatable as ints. Does that make sense?
yeah, so that's not like a conditional inside a method.
Maybe it is. That piece, no. That piece is just an expression, right? And we are just evaluating it. Depends. If you have it inside a conditional, then it is a conditional. If not, it's just calculation. Or just combining things and getting other ones. In this case, it's a REPL, so we just print it. We could store the value. We could eventually have conditionals. We're not supposed to know they exist yet. Not everybody has programming, right? So it's perfectly okay to not know what the condition is. But they're just values, and you combine them and you get other values. And that tends to be actually a transition that is hard. And that is one thing where the people who have previous programming experience have a harder time. Because you've already used it and you're thinking about putting it inside an if, as opposed to just accept that these are things and you operate in them and you get different values. Just like ints, just like floats. But it is a very good idea to force your brain to think this way. It's going to make your life easier eventually as a programmer. So if you have previous programming experience, try to make sure that you do assignment 1 without if statements. You should not use if statements. You don't need them at all. So force your brain to think that way. If you have never seen programming, then you don't know what an if statement is, and that's good. So you do assignment 1 without them. Does this idea make sense? So we know how to combine Booleans, right? And we can actually do stuff like int a equals 5. Oh, this one doesn't let me do that. And right? We can combine them to any depth. The computer will get tired way after you do, so you will get tired before. It is a good idea to not do something that's gonna confuse you, right? Keep in mind that it's not just you when you are in the zone, but you on Monday morning. So, yeah. So don't try to code as if. Don't try to code your smartest self. Try to code kind of your dumbest self. Because that way your code will be clear and easy to understand, and you'll understand it on Monday morning, the following Monday morning. But
No, if you mistakenly apply like a math operator to a Boolean, will Java give you an error?
of course. Oh, because B1. Other languages don't,
Yeah,
right?
C
B will happily convert Booleans to ints, and so true is
0.
or true is 1 and false is 0. If you need to treat them as ints. Java is not as forgiving,
That's
which is probably good. Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes it's good.
You mean true plus 3 is...
True plus 3, yeah. In C,
say
true
true
plus 3
is
is
like
4, of course, right?
Or any value not 0 is true in C.
Yes, and when you're doing the other way around, then whatever is not 0 is true. Which sort of makes sense and is actually convenient, but on the other hand, it's terribly dumb. I really like static typing and stuff that doesn't let me do really dumb things. Sometimes I really like clever stuff where I can show how smart I am, but not when my job depends on it. So what would happen with this expression? We have int a equals 10, int b equals 20. Is a greater than b is equal to a greater than b. What's that going to be, true or false? Is b greater than a equals b greater than a. What's that going to be, true or false? And then ans is this or that. And what are we going to get? True, right? Is there any values of a and b that would, if we started them here, would not get you true? If they are the same, right? Because it's neither greater nor
Yeah, if it's greater or equal, then that was
exactly. If it was greater than or equal, then it would be okay. And as you keep going, hopefully, right, this class will train your brain to see those as completely different, right? I mean, when you see greater than versus greater than or equal, you'll see them as two completely separate things because that distinction is important, right? Normal people don't realize that distinction, right? It's almost like in the Bible, 40 or 70 means like infinity, right? They don't really mean 40, right? Here, no, wait, what do you mean? Greater than or greater than or equal to 10? It's completely different. Because in some cases, one is going to do something and the other one doesn't. So what would this do if I do int x equals to 10 and then Boolean ans equals x% 2 equal 1? What's that percent? Mod, right? So 10 modulo 2 is 0. Is it equal to 1? No. So what's ans? False. Does that make sense? This kind of stuff is one of the places where Java REPL is great, right? Tomorrow, when you have a second, www.javarepl.com, go do this stuff, right? Go do those things until it seems obvious and you know, right? Like, yeah, this is elementary school stuff, right? It is, but it isn't. One important thing that I didn't mention, what's the order of operations for those things, right? In normal math, we have pentas, right? What happens with logical operators? And gets done before or, first not, then and, then or. But what's the cheating way? What happens when you don't remember which order it goes? What should you do? If you happen to forget what the heck pentas stood for, what do you do?
Google.
Sorry? Google them. Yeah. You don't have Google. What do you do when you don't remember? Yeah, add parentheses, and that makes your statement clear, right? You can do either of those two things. And chances are that you will remember whether and goes before or, but like, do the comparison operators happen before the math, right? If I do, is A greater than or equal to B greater than C, right? Am I comparing two Booleans or am I comparing, so that kind of stuff, just add parentheses. Does this idea make sense? We know Booleans. Yes? Cool. So now we can go back to functions. And functions allow us to encapsulate a rule. They're like a math function, right? You put some inputs, you get out some outputs, right? When you are using them, you just care about what's the output, right? Put stuff in and get stuff out. Just like plus, just like percent, right? Calculate a value and gives it back to me. When you are writing the function the other way around and you are like, okay, what should I produce? And then I don't care who's going to call me or what are they going to do with it. Are they going to print the value or store it in a variable? Why do I care? In this class, and actually most of the time throughout your career, it's the same use. But you should kind of be able to just say, okay, right now I'm just focusing on this. And then later I'll focus on how do I call it to make the right thing. So this is a function. It returns a value of what type?
True or false?
Boolean, yeah, true or false. What's the name of the function? It's even. And it takes one argument, right? Int number. There is probably a distinction, but I tend to call those things parameters or arguments indistinctly. I think they're officially, well, yeah, because my terminology was formal parameters and then actual parameters. Number is our formal parameter. Whenever somebody calls us, Java will replace those letters number by whichever value they used. Does that make sense? So what are we returning? We are returning whether the modulo, that number modulo 2 is equal to 0. That's the definition of even, right? Does that make sense? Shall we, let me see. Yay. Does it work? No. I'm trying to find out how to get to the It's not J shell or it's Java shell? No, I'm trying to get the shell. J console? Nah. Because this thing cheated again. No? Ha! So I can do this. That will have it. Yay! Java 9 has actually a repo for Java that has closer to the Java syntax. But as I mentioned before, if you install it, chances are that it will mess up your Eclipse and stuff. So don't install it. Install it in a virtual machine that you can mess up or something like that. But I like it better than JRepo. So here we can define a function, right? Boolean is even. Let me call it end here and do return n %2 equals 0. So now I can call it. What would this return? Actually, is big? What's a big number? Where does a number stop being big? Let's use 100. So we can call it, what would is big of 45 return? False. 99? 100? So we are going to define a cool number as one that's both big and even. How can we write that? Turn what? Or what? Does that make sense? Is 16 gonna be cool? Ah! Oh, because I said or. Is that what we meant? I said and before, right? So I defined it wrong. I am terrible. Evil me. The requirements from the user were wrong. Because my programming is always perfect. Does that make sense? You could you write is cool by doing all the comparisons by yourself? Yes, but why? That's the point of functions, to be building stuff so that your final program ends up being incredibly simple, right? So you should be defining functions until you get to something right. Does that idea make sense? Hopefully all of this will be recorded and put on YouTube. I'm trying to record it and put it on YouTube, but Java is a language. It sometimes is good, it sometimes sucks. It sucks in that it has a lot of extra overhead. We will cover the overhead and what it actually means, right? But in Java, most of the time, in Java, you cannot declare functions. You have to declare methods, and they have to be attached to a class, which is a lot more overhead. So I'm giving you kind of the template already, but so you will see most of the stuff that we do for a while in this class is always gonna have public static. Consider it noise that you cut and paste until we talk about classes. Does that make sense? Neither Java REPL nor JShell require it, but when you're doing it as part of a normal Java program, you probably will have to put that public static. So it is what it is. On the other hand, Java is probably one of the best languages for getting in the industry. Not about learning, but it's definitely one of the best for working. Yeah.
Is Boolean the method?
No, Boolean is a return type.
That's the type.
That's a type, yes. What's the method name? Easily. And public static are kind of noise. Now, we can declare variables inside our. I will call these things functions rather than methods. They're officially methods, but I can declare variables inside my functions. So if I find number %2 equals 0 too complicated, right? I can declare a variable of type int, give it a nice name, remainder by 2, and assign the value number %2 to it. And then return remainder by 2 equals 0. Does that idea make sense? It's a variable just like every other variable, with the caveat that it's a local variable. Variables have scope. Variables have values, right? And you give them a name. If we required every name in our program to be unique, we could get confused really quickly. Like we would need to start writing really, really long names, right? So what you do is you restrict yourself to a scope, right? So in this class, if I say Orlando, you know that probably means me, right? If you say it in the world, who knows, right? Maybe it's the city, maybe it's some other guy, right? So the scope of a variable tells us where it's valid, where can I talk about it, and the meaning in that piece. So that variable, remainder by 2, is local to the isEven function. Anytime that you see it outside of that function, it's a different variable with the same name. Does that make sense? As much as you can, and for the first 4 or 5 weeks in this class, right, your functions and methods will not change the world. They always do stuff inside and return whatever they compute. Once you start changing the world, then you have to think about what happens first and what happens next and things like that. But for the most part, if you can avoid changing the world, that makes your thinking a lot simpler. We can, of course, nest function calls. In fact, we just did an example here, right? So you could have a function add. That's terribly hard. It just adds 2 numbers. We could call it, right? We could call declare variable n and assign it add of 3, 7. What's the value that would be assigned? 10. Then n2 and assign it n plus 3. 13, right? But I can also do stuff like this. How is this calculated? First calculate this one. What's that? 5. Then this one. And then add of 5 and 12, and that's going to give you 17, right? Make sense? And we can actually compose functions, right? Like if we have add and isEven, we could have a function isSumEven that returns isEven of add of those numbers. Does this make sense? Reasonable sense. You can combine them to any depth. It is a very good idea to come up with good names for your functions, right? It's kind of a standard smell. If you cannot think of a good name, you don't understand it, right? And so don't be afraid to have long names if that's the right thing to do. And don't be afraid to nest functions. In fact, you should try. So let's try this quickly. We have the add function above. It's too easy, right? Some examples is in between, whether the number, the first parameter, is between high and low, right? If you do too much math, you would try to write number greater than or equal to high greater than or equal to low, and that's a syntax error, right? So you need to write it this way. Number greater than or equal to high and number less than or equal to low. Does this make sense? I want to put it as an example because it's fairly common for people to just try to write it like in math, especially if you're taking discrete math at the same time or something like that. Yes?
Can it be switched?
Yes. Both and or are reversible. Is that what you meant? Could we write number less than or equal to low and number greater than or equal to high?
Oh, wait, no, different.
Oh, no, actually, I wrote it wrong. Isn't that cool? Yes, you got it. Using good names is good. I meant them to be the other way around. Now, actually, this brain fart has been on the notes for 2 semesters now. Thanks for catching it. Don't let me not remove it. Yeah, so we'll change it. It will have the right stuff in there. Thank you. We could define a function, say all true, that takes 4 parameters, all booleans, and returns whether they are all true, right? This is actually how you could, or one way that you could define an exclusive OR function. It's this or this, and not both of them. Well, yeah. In this case, it doesn't terribly matter. Probably should have put parentheses, but in this case, it's always going to give you the same thing. You're probably going to start seeing this kind of stuff in discrete math, and you will talk about the Morgan's law and those kinds of things. We tend to use them. You can either learn them in discrete math or just use them. Chances are that you already know them, you just never thought about them. You know them because you speak in English, right? Or whatever other language you also speak. And you use them all the time. It's just, we don't normally verbalize this kind of stuff. But, cool. Now, let me quickly go over assignment 0 and go cheat. You will be creating, I spent yesterday night doing all that horrible stuff, creating teams and things. I think I'm here. Okay. For those of you who have sent me your Bitbucket thing and where there was nothing special, I sent you something like this, right? So what you're going to do is open a terminal. If you're on Windows, you probably want to download Git Bash first. Git Bash gives you a terminal and bash. You don't usually think about it that way, but the command line is an interpreter. You type commands and it does them, almost like a programming language. And bash is a standard shell that's widely used. Windows has this other thingy. What's the other thing? It has bat files, which are hideous, but it has PowerShell, which is actually really cool. On the other hand, everybody else uses bash, and so it's a good idea to learn bash, just because everybody else does that. And so one of the tools that I asked you to download is Git Bash, which will give you something like this, except with a black background. So I'm asking you to cd documents projects, right? Let's follow this. Actually, the first thing is the setup. That is here. cd slash home slash documents. You can actually cut and paste in Git Bash and in Linux. Control insert and Shift insert, cut and paste. In the Mac, whatever, it's Apple C and Apple V. I'm gonna cheat and not do this because I already have it, so I'm just gonna do cd projects, and you're just navigating to folders. This is the same. If you open your file explorer, you will see all those folders and things like that. You're doing the exact same thing except on the command line. And then you would clone your repo. And I'm asking you to call it CS5000. So I'm gonna give you this stuff. So in my case, repo name is 5kf12 and OK1. And I'm actually gonna cheat. You can do several things to authenticate. If you just write the name of the repo when you're cloning and you use HTTPS, then Git will ask you for your username and password every time you touch the repo, for every time you connect to the remote repo. If you set up SSH keys, then you can use SSH. If you don't know what an SSH key is, it's okay. You probably want to learn it in the next year or two, but you don't have to learn it today. And you can follow my instructions where I give you to type HTTPS and give your Bitbucket username and password. But I already have SSH keys and I don't want to record my password, which I have done a couple of times. It is wrong. I'm gonna cheat again and go here and do it here. I'm actually remoted into a different machine that has the right keys, or some right keys. So you do something like this, and that will not work. I am so terrible. Let me come to Bitbucket, change my password fairly quickly, and because unfortunately I cannot. What the heck is my password? Hopefully this one.
Maybe the firewall is off.
Sorry?
Maybe the firewall is off. It's cool.
Yay, I changed it. So now I can actually use the same thing. I can use HTTPS. That guy is Okaram1, and my password, terribly secret, is this. And so that will actually clone. Woohoo! If you are terribly paranoid, this actually keeps the password on your hard drive, which is slightly uncouth, but unless you share the computer with other people, that's not that big of a deal. And I'd rather not type my password all the time. So you change to this folder. The first thing that you're gonna want to do is called make eclipse, and the instructions tell you. And what this does is it creates the Eclipse projects. I cannot create them because I don't know where your machine is Eclipse or where your machine is Java. And so this is doing magic that will actually go and create the projects. Takes a little while, it shouldn't take more than 2 or 3 minutes, but and in the meantime, let me open Eclipse. I'm assuming that you have downloaded that stuff, right?
It gives me an error when I try to download Eclipse.
Why did you try to download?
There's
Yeah. There's different versions and there's, that's the stuff that is hard to,
okay.
if you bring your laptop, we can try to debug the error, but
It's not my desktop.
yeah.
Yeah.
Does it matter?
If you bring your desktop, we can, no.
Yeah.
It doesn't terribly matter. You can use any other text editor. Just Eclipse is going to make your life easier. If you can send me an email with more specific info, right? I mean,
Okay.
it gave me an error when I tried to download Eclipse. Is completely
Yeah, I was trying to do it
undebuggable.
really late last night, so I didn't put that
Yeah.
much time into it, so maybe I'll just try to.
Try it again. Try to click on different buttons and see what happens. And if not, let me know. But it can be like, I went to this file, right? I went to this particular button in this particular site, and it gave me this error. Maybe we can try.
Okay.
I haven't downloaded Eclipse in ages, and it changes every time.
It's called Neon now.
Okay.
Yours is Mars.
I still have Mars, yes. I think, I did it with somebody. Neon, and you actually download only the installer, and then the installer installs it, or at least that's the easiest way to get it on the website.
You download the installer, and then you go in. It kept giving me, I forget what. It showed me what the problem was. If I keep getting that, I'll email that to you and show you what it's showing me.
Cool. So what you're going to be able to do is file, import, and you're going to have to do this for actually system projects into workspace. Go to that folder, projects. You'd have documents, projects, and where the heck did I put it? Thank you. And open will actually, search for nested projects or something like that. It should be telling me which things. It just uploads all of them. Now, you can do several things. You will see we have a different folder for each project to keep them separate. Also, I ask you to create a branch in Git so that we keep them also separate. So you do git checkout -b a0. I messed up. Yeah, it's okay. You can add them or not. Yeah. It should only be needed on this one, and then it should never change. I messed up and I didn't remove these files from Git. Didn't tell Git that it shouldn't use these files, but if you go to each individual folder, you can actually run gradlew grade, and that actually grades your assignment. Sort of, kinda. So you got 0 out of 20. Because it's wrong, of course, right? That's the empty assignment. You can also do test, and that tends to run more tests. I almost never, and it's telling you exactly what happened and who failed, right? In Eclipse, you can actually go, it puts the source code in here. Let me go close all the other stuff. I have no clue what it was anymore. This is assignment 0. And actually, God, this is detailed test, and we may not be able to do that thing because my Eclipse is messed up. Did it work? Yes, it did. Maybe. When did it run? Basically, if you click run on this and your Eclipse is not messed up, I think I have Java 9 on this machine, which messed up Eclipse. You should see a list of tests and which one passed and not, and you can go change it. In this case, what do we want to change? We have two methods, add and subtract. Add should add two numbers, a and b, so what should we change here? A plus b, right? And subtract. We save, play with it in Eclipse. When you're done, come back here, run gradle grade, and see what happens. Woohoo! We fixed it, right? You can do git status, and it tells you which files have changed, right? You can either add all this or just do. What the heck happened? God, do I suck?
That's what happened to me.
I need to. Yeah, I need to add you one more file to add. For some reason, didn't get cloned into the repos. The .gitignore lets you tell it don't do any of these things. But the ones that we want to add is this one. Actually, that's the only one we changed. So we can do git add this guy. No. I will send you that thingy. I didn't. If you do git status again, you will see the ones in green. You need to commit. The instructions actually tell you all that stuff, so you can cut and paste. That comment is going to be a title. So sometimes it's something like this. Sometimes it's, oh, assignment 0, but I messed up on this one or something like that, right? Whatever you want to say. And then git push origin b0. Yeah.
There was something that I didn't do that gave me that error, and then I had to do that. It was a branch. I didn't do a branch. I got that error.
No, but I'm on branch b0. A0. I am an idiot. It should be A0. You have to type the right branch.
Yes.
Thank you. That actually pushes it there. On Bitbucket, yes.
Is that crazy? Whatever.
Yeah. Now I cannot log in anymore. Maybe I need to do add cancel. Normally you would see your repo, which is this guy. you will see the branches, and what you want to do is to send a pull request. Create a pull request. You're gonna select the branch. To which branch? The one that has the right stuff is master by default. Here you can type more stuff, and then you need to add me. What? Something's wrong with GitHub. Make sure to add me, because that's how I know that you submitted a pull request. If not, then I don't know what happened. Oh, it wasn't in the instructions?
I don't think so.
No.
Okay, if you forget to add me, come and do edit. And in edit, you can add more people. For some reason, it doesn't find me anymore. Hopefully, it will find me on you.
Aren't you OK1?
No, OK1 was the name of the repo.
Oh.
And what I end up seeing is something like this. This is the pull request. It tells me what changed. And I can tell you stuff like use the capital addition operator. Add spaces between operators, for example. Eventually, when this is right, then I will merge it and it will disappear. I will try to reply to the pull request within a day. I work during the day, so usually I check those at night. Don't take it badly. I am gonna try to reply to every pull request immediately and either approve or decline, just to get them off my plate, right? I make comments, and if it's not perfect, I'll probably decline it. If it ends up being important for a grade, let me know. But what I'm assuming is that you will fix it and make it better and better and better until we hit approve, and then you get 100, right? I am assuming that each one of you will get 100 on all the assignments, right? You can submit an unlimited number of times, usually around 7, because I'm not going to be checking them that often, right? So 1 per day per week. But you can submit several times, right? And fix this stuff and improve it until you get it right and you get 100. Does that make sense? So just make sure that you're doing this stuff. If you haven't done so, officially assignment 1 is due Monday. I'm doing no penalties or anything like that because I'm assuming some of you are going to have issues. Also, you are not even required to be in class on this week. So there may be people who join the class on Monday, which means I am not actually. I will try to grade them if you submit them before Monday, but I'm not assuming that I will have. So the realistic deadline is the following Monday, only for assignment 1. After that, I'm going to try to be a lot more of a stickler for deadlines. If you haven't done so, send me your Bitbucket account. I'm going to probably stay here, upload this to YouTube, and work on the people who sent me an email within a couple of days that didn't get into my first round. Other than that, see you. Sorry that it took 5 minutes of your life. I'll see you guys eventually.
So you probably sent out that first batch prior to today, right? Today Wednesday? Today's Wednesday. So you probably sent that out like Monday evening?
No, it's not the Thursday morning.
Okay. You're right. I did that last time. That's what I think I did it late Monday night.
One sec, let me try to find out how the heck do I